Now, John, when we looked at the other shelter, the debris shelter, how long do you suppose it took to make that type of shelter?
Just the frame?
Yeah.
Probably took them a good 3 hours maybe to collect all those good pieces of wood.
At least. Here's a quick and dirty shelter here. It's called a tarp shelter, and Dan and I put it up in about 5 minutes. And all it involves is a rope that extends from one tree to another, the ridge pole or ridge line, and we simply draped a tarp over it and secured the ends. Very quick, very efficient, very dirty, so to speak. But you'll notice this is not a winter type shelter. What are some clues that tells you it's basically a summer type shelter?
Well, the open sides would provide a good breeze, which would help keep the bugs down.
Right.
And with the breeze going through there, it's not going to provide a lot of insulation, so it's definitely not suitable for a winter type shelter because you want to stay as warm as possible in the wintertime.
Exactly. Now, if I had to cook in there, I'm going to ask Dan to step inside. Dan, would you mind going in the shelter, please? And you'll notice that he can actually stand in it, and there you go. He can stand in it, and if he wants to, he can sit in it. He can cook in it. He can get a fire going in it, and it'll keep the area fairly snug as long as the winds aren't blowing. Now, to offset the wind blowing, you can see that this shelter is built in a very enclosed area, so there's very little breeze in here. It's good and it's bad. It's bad if the bugs are bad, and it's good if it's a fairly chilly night. So it'll keep the breeze from penetrating your shelter. So this is a very quick and dirty shelter. Now, what do you like about the shelter?
I like that it's very easy to set up. You're not going to be wasting a lot of energy and a lot of time. The fact that it's high off the ground, and it creates a horizontal line. The ridge line creates a horizontal line with the ground, which could be easier to be seen by anyone searching for you if you're lost. The corners are tied down, they're taut, so it should be good with the wind, as well as the trees provide a natural protection from the wind. It'll keep your tarp from getting ripped up if the weather's bad.
Well, what about rain? Will it repel rain at that angle?
Definitely, yeah. The angle on the sides will shed the water to the outside of your shelter, and you've got a high point in the center, which should prevent the water from collecting in where you're sitting.
Anything that you don't like about this type of shelter?
Well, the obvious one is it's not going to be good in really bad weather. If you're not well sheltered, like the winds could be driving in right underneath it, you'd need to lower it a little bit towards the ground to provide better shelter from rain in high winds.
And there's another key point. We could easily lower the ridge line, tighten up the ends, and you'll have a snug shelter. It'll be lower, but it's much suited for inclement weather. This is basically for a fair weather shelter if your only problem is rain.
Yeah. And one other point is if you're lost and you want people to be able to find you, a green tarp is probably not the best choice. You probably want to go with a blue or even a red. Those colors are much easier to be seen. Blue being the most visible in the bush.
You've flown over areas. Have you noticed the color blue, how it really stands out in places?
Most definitely, yeah. It's very easy to see from the air. It provides such a high contrast to the greens and the browns that you see on the ground in remote areas.
So there's a pro and con in putting a shelter in a treed area where you can't be seen from the air, but on the other hand is providing you shelter in case of really bad weather. So these are all the decisions you have to make if you're in a survival situation. This is why we stress the word psychology. You've got to be thinking, your mind has to be agile at all times. There is no right, no wrong. You've got to be thinking and use your brain to determine best location, best site location for your shelter.